Laura, and this week on the show we're going to be talking about how you can take bold action in your coaching business without becoming overwhelmed and burned out. Now, I wanted to do this episode of the show on this topic because I feel like when we are actively growing our coaching business, it is like almost by default, it's quite stressful because we are requiring ourselves to constantly push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And that in itself can be quite taxing on our nervous system, like I say, quite stressful. And it can, like for me in the past, it's really led to a lot of overwhelm and burnout and vulnerability hangovers and things like that. And I wanted to talk a bit about how do we take that bold action? How do we do the stepping outside of our comfort zone, but how do we avoid the overwhelm and burnout? And what can we do? How can we set up some things in our business and in our lifestyle to support ourselves while we're growing a business? So the first thing that I think is really useful to consider is, I think a lot of us have a bit of a negative view of our comfort zone. Like we're constantly told we should be stepping outside of our comfort zone. Don't play small, don't play safe in your comfort zone. I've said these things before. However, our comfort zone, that's our safe space. That's the core of us. And when you're in your comfort zone, you are comfortable. And that's okay. Like, when did comfort become such a bad thing? I actually think a lot of us have got like this negative connotation with our comfort zone, and I don't think our comfort zone is by definition a bad thing. So I think we need to recognize that our comfort zone is a place that we can come to, and really our comfort zone is where we want to be operating the majority of the time. If we are not operating in our comfort zone the majority of the time, we're going to get burnt out and overwhelmed. And people might disagree with me on this, but I honestly think that if we are constantly pushing ourselves, for most of us who are not like some people really thrive on that kind of high pressured, constantly doing new things, pushing themselves situation. Like some people really thrive on that. I think the majority of people do not. And I definitely think that the majority of people who are growing a coaching business, who might have children, who might have other shit going on in their lives, need to embrace their comfort zone sometimes. And majority of the time, I think we need to be operating from our comfort zone the majority of the time. And I think that's the thing. I think when we try and push ourselves out of our comfort zone too much, that is when we end up overwhelmed and burned out. So my first kind of tip, I suppose, is to see your comfort zone as not as like this thing that has to be like that's negative and you were a bad person because you were in your comfort zone, but actually to see it for what it is, the safe space that you can operate from most of the time, where you are not becoming stressed and overwhelmed and burnt out. So I think that's the first thing to consider with all of this, is just to see your comfort zone in that way. And then the next thing is really to think about how you can sustainably expand that comfort zone. Now, when I think back to when I first started my coaching business, I can remember the first time I got on Skype. This is how long ago it was, guys. It was not Zoom, it was Skype. I can remember my first Skype call with a client, and I was absolutely fucking shitting myself. I was so nervous about it. The first time I did a discovery call, so nervous, so stressed out, my God, like it was hideous. And now it is not a thing. Getting on Zoom and doing a discovery call, very easy for me to do. And that's because I've expanded that comfort zone. And I think that we need to do that as coaches, and we need to do that in a sustainable way. So this is really about taking those steps outside of your comfort zone in order to expand it. But I think we need to do that, like I say, in a sustainable way. So when we try and ask ourselves to do too much all at once, that's when we become burnt out and overwhelmed, basically. So how can we basically do these things that are going to feel like a bit of a stretch, but do them at a pace that feels comfortable? So this is like where we marry the two things together. So can we have a more comfortable pace of doing things, but can we be doing the things that scare us and that are outside of our comfort zone? And then a good example of this is if you are just starting to work with clients, it might be that you are not also asking yourself to do a webinar in front of 200 people at the same time as getting comfortable with being on Zoom with one person. It might be that, to use that webinar analogy, that perhaps you do a group call with 5 people before you go ahead and push yourself to do a massive big presentation to loads of people. Like, how can you take these incremental steps rather than trying to push yourself all at once and become really stressed out, basically. So that sustainable expansion of your comfort zone. And like I say, you'll get to the point where the things that used to scare you and make you feel really stressed do not do that anymore. And that's where we want to get to, but we want to do that at a sustainable pace, at a comfortable pace, so that we're not becoming burned out. Because I really feel like when we are throwing ourselves in at the deep end, like as always, there are exceptions to this rule. Some people thrive on being thrown in at the deep end, but when we're throwing ourselves in at the deep end all of the time, that's when it gets really stressful. So thinking about how we can do that in a sustainable way. And then another thing to consider is how can we anchor into a sense of safety? One of the things that I think really gets battered is like our nervous system when we are doing all of the things out of our comfort zone. How can we support ourselves to feel safe and have a basis of safety? Now, I really think that when we are growing a coaching business, we need some financial security around. Now, that might mean that you're not necessarily expecting your coaching business to meet all of your financial, like your actual, I need to put food on the table needs immediately. Now, this is going to look differently for everyone and lots of different circumstances, but I think when we have that basis of safety, if you think of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to have your basic needs met before you can start pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. That's where we want to be. We want to be getting those basic needs met and being able to anchor into that sense of safety. And I feel like a good extension of this tip is how can we create some practices that are going to support our nervous system as we grow our coaching business. Now, just to say, I am trauma aware, but not trauma informed in a professional sense. And I'm not professionally trained in nervous system dysregulation or anything like that. So I'm very much speaking as a lay person in all of this, but things like what practices can you do to support yourself and your mental health and your nervous system? For me, that looks like things like meditation and yoga. EFT is part of that. And it's really just thinking about what practices do you need to support yourself. As coaches, I know that you guys probably all get this, but sometimes it's easy to forget to apply it in the sense of your business and how that might be impacting how you feel and how you feel internally, your mental well-being and things like that as well. So I think having a really solid self-care practice that is going to soothe your nervous system and really support you to be able to take those big, bold steps that we are all going to have to take in our businesses to actually progress and grow them. I think those things are really useful as well. Another thing that I think is really valuable in your coaching business is to have a place where you get support. Now, obviously I would say that as a business mentor, but I really feel like having a space where you can be supported is extremely valuable. So in my Wholehearted Business Group program, we have our regular group calls, we have like specific mindset calls, and these are just places where the guys in that program can come and share what's going on for them. They can share their ups and downs. They can share like difficult situations. They can share how they might be feeling stuck. They can be sharing their wins as well, which is awesome. But having that space where you can be supported by people who also get you, I think does wonders for you being able to take those big, bold steps and to be supported in doing so, and to be able to, again, take that sustainable approach to expanding your comfort zone. I really feel like having some kind of support, like whatever that might need to look like for you. It could be working with one-to-one with someone, it could be a group program or a membership or something, but I feel like having a safe space, and usually I would go so far as saying like having somewhere that's not just like a Facebook group where you're putting stuff in, but somewhere where you're actually sitting down and talking with people, I think is really valuable as well. And then finally, I think something that we can all do as well is just to have an eye on how we can simplify things a little bit. I think it's very easy to overcomplicate things like our marketing and like all sorts of elements in our business. It's really easy to overthink and overcomplicate. So how can we simplify? I think when we simplify, we do take like a mental load off. So is there any things that you can do in your business where you can simplify so that you can take bigger, bolder action, perhaps in a more targeted area of your business as well? So I think that's something to consider too. So just to recap, and like I said, I wanted to talk about this because I feel like if you are growing a coaching business, you are required to take those big, bold steps. But we need to do that in a way that is going to honour us, honour our mental well-being, and lead to us feeling safe and supported. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to end up burnt out, overwhelmed, and that is not going to have a very good impact on our business overall. So just to sum up, I talked about how we can support ourselves and our nervous system through self-care practices, things like meditation and EFT and visualization, or yoga, anything that we need to that kind of supports our nervous system. I've talked about anchoring into safety and making sure that you have all of your like core needs met, because I think when we're operating from a place where those are not met, it gets really difficult. But your individual circumstances they're going to look how they look, but having those initial needs met, I think, is going to mean that you're much less likely to get burnt out and overwhelmed. I feel like having an approach where you recognize that your comfort zone is actually a really positive thing, and that you're in that comfort zone the majority of the time, because when we're not in it, we are getting stressed out. That's not to say not to stay in it, but that we are in there the majority of the time, and really see that as actually a place of safety and a place where we feel anchored and secure. And then to take an approach where we are taking the big bold action, but we're doing it at a sustainable, safe pace, so that we're not massively overwhelming ourselves. And also to get supported as well. I think that's such a big thing, is just to find a place where you are getting supported. So I hope that's given you some things to think about. If this is like something that affects you, like I'd love to know if there's anything that's come for you around this. Like I said, just being in business just require us to do things that are outside of our comfort zone, things that we've never done before. If we've never run a business, a lot of this stuff is new. If we've never worked with clients, a lot of this stuff is new. If you're getting into marketing, a lot of this stuff is new, and it is pushing you out there all of the time. And I think having a way of acknowledging that and a way of managing that is really going to make your business more successful over time, and not to mention massively support your mental well-being as well. So I'd love to know what you guys think of this. A couple of reminders as well. If you are listening to this early in the week that this goes out, we have the Aligned Marketing and Client Attraction Workshop happening this week on Wednesday the 21st of September. If you want to know what to do to get clients right now, if you want to know how to future-proof the flow of clients into your business, how to market your business without social media if that's something that you don't want to do, and just basically how to show up in your marketing in a much more authentic, aligned way, then please do come and sign up for that. The information is going to be in the description box. I'd love to see you there. If you can't make it live at 1 p.m. on the 21st of September, the replay will be available too. So there's that. And also just a reminder that my group program Wholehearted Business is open all of the time. There is a special offer available. I will be talking about that in the workshop as well. But this is my group program where I specifically support coaches who are at that point in their businesses where they are seeking clients and going out there and marketing. So do check out all the information for that. The link will be in the description as well. And I hope it's been useful, and I will see you guys next week. Do take care. Bye.